Hello everyone and welcome back. First thing we do is check on the processing units and realize it's not really producing as much as we'd like, so we check on the other circuits, the advanced circuits, and realize that it's just not transferring fast enough, so go ahead and manually transfer some over. After that I begin looking at what we have so far, and we still need a number of individual items for the rocket silo. So I start getting things together, throwing it all into the rocket silo setup, because it was taking a while to transfer out of the chest, so I just kind of started working on it manually. Then I ended up putting too many of the engines in, so I had to work on creating the correct amount of engines, and then getting the rest of the processors in. Now we weren't quite at the processing setup yet, so I started working on what's needed for the satellite. Starting off with, of course, the solar panels. Now, we need 100 solar panels for the satellite, so I'll go ahead and set that up, making sure there's a limit on this insert so we're not creating a whole bunch of extra solar panels than we actually really need. After I get that set up, the robots start bringing everything over for the creation of those individual pieces, and then I start getting a setup here for the iron and copper so that we can have iron and copper in the system, because until then we didn't really have any sitting in the system, and nothing was really adding it to the system since our new setup. So I went ahead and worked on that, and I manually crafted the 5 satellites that are needed for, 5 radars needed for the satellite. And then I went ahead and set up the rocket fuel. Now we're going to need 50 rocket fuel in order to have our creation of the satellite. Next I'll work on the 100 low density structure that is required for the satellite. After that's all set up, I'll go ahead and work on the 100 accumulators that are going to be needed for the satellite. So as you can tell, this is just me getting ready to set up the satellite. This is going to be needed when we actually get the rocket silo set up and get the rocket built, which will take some time. I also work on emptying out some of the items in my inventory after I make sure that we have the processing set up. Here's where I start emptying items out of my inventory by using the robots. Get them out of the way so they're not cluttering up my inventory. I'm just researching laser turret damage at this point because there's really nothing else for me to research, and I'm, just at the pinnacle of the end game. There's really not much else for me to do but to get this rocket set up and launched. So I'm going ahead and I'm checking back and forth and kind of manually getting things for the rocket silo itself, as it's taking far too long. As soon as it gets created, I start taking out the rest of the extra items and wait for it to be finished crafting. There we go, we have the rocket silo. I'll place the rocket silo down and get some power to connect to it. This is where I'm looking at what is needed to create the rocket itself. It's low density, rocket fuel, and the computer. So that shouldn't be too hard. I need to get some more setups to create those individual items and place it directly into the rocket silo for the rocket to be crafted. So the rocket control unit is the first thing I start working on. I realize I need speed modules, so I get this set up just for speed modules. Of course I realize in a second that it's only speed modules 1 and not speed module 2 or 3. So I get rid of the other setup here, so that we're only left with the speed module 1s. I get this kick-started by setting up 2 assembly machines, crafting the same item kind of on the corner, so it can caddy corner into the rocket silo. This is just saving us a little bit of space in the setup. I manually pull some of the processing units, and then realize that as soon as I pull them, the robots pulled it out of the chest because I have it set up as a provider chest. So I have to go ahead and find out where they could possibly have gone to gather them up, because we need 100 of those processing units for the satellite itself. I want to keep those aside, so I might change it from So I changed it to a steel chest. I'm getting words here. Change it to a steel chest and connect it via the wires instead, creating a circuit network, and reset up the inserters for the amount needed, like 50 and hundreds. This way, they didn't have to do anything with the logistic network, and the robots wouldn't pull from the chest anymore. But we are still a little down. I think we're at 82 at this point, and there just isn't enough for the full 100 that's needed for that. So I go ahead and separate things out to kind of make it all even, and basically the max amount of space the individual items will pull or require after they've completed all the amount that they need. So after I get that all set up, I start working on getting the extra items over to our control units, or the extra processing units over to our control units. I have to do a bit of this manually because the robots are taking forever with all the other requests going on, and they don't seem to jump right into answering a request. I also had to reset up our speed down here because I had removed the needs for the circuits earlier to kind of kickstart the processing units. So I then realized I need to do production to kind of kickstart our setup as well. So I changed this over to production rather than efficiency. These are now production modules. Productivity modules, sorry. I then use the modules I already have to kind of add a little boost to our advanced circuit setup as well, as it seems like it wasn't creating fast enough. At least not fast enough for I need. That seems to be the theme of this today. Just everything is a little slower than I'd like it to be. I think a good part of that is due to the robots themselves. They take far too long to transfer items between different locations. It's very convenient for setup wise, but it does take an extra amount of time for that logistic, relief, as I would like to call it, because it is a relief on the head as far as finding out the best routes where you can put things together. We added the low density structure to the rocket silo as well, as it's going to be required for the, guess what, the rocket pieces. So we got that going. I come over here and check on what we have going for the plastic and realize that it is decent, but it's not quite what we need. There seems to be a little lacking on our creation for pieces. So I noticed that we needed to add to this here for the low oil. After adding that, it seemed like the low oil was being produced pretty fast at this point, and that more petroleum was going through the system. But I then felt that we needed to work on a little bit more here. So I had to double check on the rocket fuel, as we needed more items creating rocket fuel as well, or not particularly rocket fuel, but the actual solid fuel. So I go ahead and check on our satellite setup and go ahead and add to the processing units to see if we can get that boosted up as well. Adding in another assembly machine. Checking our speed modules and craft some speed modules myself. But I realize it's not really necessary, as the actual percentage of this just isn't what I need anyway. So I'll go ahead and limit the speed module ones to 100, I believe. I limit it to 20, not 100. But I do limit it down so we're not overcrafting the speed modules. And then I connect it to the electric pole there so I can easily check to see what the current number of them are at any given time. I then upgrade to the assembly 3s, which is the whole reason that I wanted to have the extra speed modules anyway. Because we're going to upgrade some of these pieces to assembly 3s just to give us a faster boost on our crafting speeds. Add some speed modules to these setups here as well, just to give that bit of a boost, as it kind of negates the negative 15 on this percent speed from the productivity modules. So it gives us an overall boost in speed and productivity. And then I add the productivity module and speed module to our plastic to definitely use more out of our petroleum than we already are currently using. Kind of get more bang for the buck. I then realized we're currently mostly out of oil. So to go ahead and add, change these to the fast belts here. And then gotta figure out where my train is and send it back to HQ so I can start working on what is the problem with the oil. Didn't take too long to realize part of this isn't even being properly supplied. It seems that even it's just out of the network, so these items are not being supplied. So to go ahead and request a robot port. After the robots eventually get me the robot port that I request, I go ahead and place it so it covers easily over these two locations so that coal can be placed into these two chests here for the train. It was taking a little while for them to do so. After that's all filled up, I go ahead and place down some concrete, just make my life a little easier, before jumping into the train itself and heading over to our oil. Any minute now. There we go. Post commentary is always fun. I then check out why it's being so slow and realize there's only a single thing set up here, and these tanks are completely full of oil. So I go ahead and cut these trees out of the way, and we're going to set up 3 assemblers here of level Mark III assemblies. 7 machines, yes, Mark III 7 machines. This will definitely increase the amount of oil that's being barreled up. So after a bit of finagling, I figured out a good way of getting this all set up. You'll see here that I produce a line and then kind of use long inserters with underground belts to get this all set up. I then filter the inserter to make sure that's not pulling anything but the empty ones, and then I accidentally break my train. So I had to go find the pieces and realize I didn't connect properly. Even though it looks like it's connected, it's not. You'll see in just a moment. So to go ahead and put together my entire train from square one to get it all working again. I then had to add the oil. So to run a line for oil. After that was good, it seemed like everything was working perfectly fine. And then, all of a sudden I realized, oh, it didn't work correctly, so I couldn't really get it to connect. So I had to go ahead and take everything apart, replace down my train. And of course, repair my train. Before hopping in and going. And then of course realizing that I don't really need to have it loop like that, as we're no longer doing a single, we're doing a double wide setup. So I reset up the requirements for it and let it go back. My next thing is to grab is to actually go ahead and upgrade the input for our oil setup, as it's still set up as the slow belts. So I spent a little bit of time upgrading everything to fast belt. Then check out our system and make sure that's running properly. It seems that we're getting plenty of oil this time, and all of them are bursting into action. So go ahead and double check on this to make sure it's working, and then realize that I probably could use a lot more of these barrels, empty barrels. So go ahead and create a system that if any time the number of barrels that are in this chest right here are less than, right there, less than 1. That means if it's completely empty out for any given reason, this will start requesting steel and creating more barrels. So as the setup wasn't quite working right, I couldn't figure out as to why. And then it took me a second to realize that's where the setup actually is. So with a bit of extra work and tweaking, I was able to get it working. And I set it to have a circuit set up so that it doesn't leave until they're all empty. When it's completely empty of crude oil, and it has a few seconds of inactivity. Or if inventory is full. So basically there's no activity going on, or the inventory is completely full, then it'll go ahead and go back for oil. I went ahead and created a whole bunch of extra barrels, and I wanted to have the inventory completely full as a way of the actual means of it going back. And it seems like I did remove that setup. So basically I had it where if the inventory is full and the crude oil barrel is counted as 0, or if 60 seconds have passed. That's what I decided to set that as. But then I just went back and decided to, yep, no, kept it the same, or 60 seconds. So yeah, it's that it has no more crude barrels, the inventory is full, and or the 60 seconds has passed. So in 60 seconds it'll go back, or if the entire thing is filled with barrels. Empty barrels. No crude barrels are left. And then remove the extra loop as no longer needed because of the double setup. There's a lot of activity. They are filling it pretty quickly. So obviously I didn't like the setup there. It's not waiting until it's completely empty of the barrels here. So I was like, alright, well let's get this going a little quicker, shall we? I use stack considers for this to make sure it empties as quick as humanly possible. Then set it up so that it has to empty out completely and just have crude barrels in it. Hop it on back. And I see the crude barrels is going right on up there. Crude oil barrels. Barrels full of oil. So go ahead and check that. Follow it all the way up to make sure that's working correctly. And like that, like a charm. So they're all fired up and running perfectly fine at this point. So I head on back, double check our setup, and see if we're ready to create that satellite yet. Then I realized we're low on steel, because I removed the steel setup and we're no longer producing any steel. We've been purely running off of the excess steel from our last setups. So let's try to see if we had any more furnaces, and it turns out we really didn't have any more furnaces. We had used them all. And that was quite a shame. Of course, as you see here, I put the iron straight down the center, and that's not how it's set up. The center is the output, not the input, so I had to go back and fix that. But in the meantime, I did check the CR setup over here and realized there's a lot of extra stuff we have here, including those assembly machines. A whole pile of assembly machine ones. There's a lot of extra stuff we had here sitting here from all of our production from before. So seeing that we need some bricks there, try to have the robots give me everything they possibly could. And it turns out there wasn't really much for them to give me. So I went ahead and had them remove everything. Then came up here and realized that we're all out of stone. There's no more stone being produced in the system because we have mined it all up. All of it's gone. Finally mined up all that stone. So I go ahead and tear down the whole system. And I go ahead and take these electric furnaces here. Have the robots take everything else away. Use those electric furnaces for this setup over here. Here's where I go ahead and fix our setup here, as it's supposed to split at this point and go into the left and right sides of the system and then output towards the center. After I get that fixed and all ready to go, it doesn't take me long to get the system running. Now that we are producing steel, the robots should go ahead and grab them as required. I go ahead and manually put some steel in here to jump start this whole system. Now I'm double checking this whole setup to see what currently is the next bottleneck. And there's actually mods purely built off this whole checking the bottleneck. There's actually a mod called bottleneck. And now that I'm done everything else except for, guess what? The low density structures. So I went ahead and mass produced the low density structures at this point. Started getting an assembly machine set up for the satellite and adding all the required items to it. Took me a little while as my inventory seemed to have been mucked up with all kinds of things. We're so close to getting that satellite done. Throw in some speed modules to quicken up the pace, as the satellite does take a little while to craft. I'll start working on the rocket fuel, requesting the solid fuel, and getting these assemblers set up. The production of the rocket itself will take some time, as we need all sets of all 3 pieces for each part, and I believe each part is only a single %, so you need 100 of these pieces to actually get the thing completed, and then you add the satellite in the very end. At this point, I would like a way of setting up the Mark III assembly machine, so I started setting up an auto crafting area for these assembly machines. I realized that a large portion of what we have here are actually assembly machine 1s, not assembly machine 2s. So it didn't take me long to go ahead and set up an assembly 2 setup as well. This way it'll mass produce both of them after a bit of upgrading. So let's set up an automation for the assembly machine 2. Move it up just enough so that it immediately throws it into the assembly machine 3 rather than throwing them into a shaft of any sort. As you see, we had plenty of assembly machine 1s to convert into assembly machine 2s. Plenty of them. Look at how many robots are grabbing them. The whole line just keeps going. So many assembly machines. Why do we have so many? So go ahead and throw these modules down. Just kind of getting an extra kick to our production, as we're going to need a lot of production to really get things going in regards to getting that rocket set up. That's our last piece here, is getting that rocket. Because right now we've got all the structures we need for the satellite, and there we have the satellite. Woo! So now we just need the rocket itself, and then we are done this entire process. This episode after episode of processing. This is 20 episodes in. It's ridiculous. Seeing that each one is about an hour long, we put 20 hours, about 20 hours into this game, and it's still getting that rocket set up. There's people who speed run it in an hour and a half or 2 hours. It's ridiculous. We're taking 20 hours, man. It's ridiculous. Anyway, we're going to check up on our system and start adding in some of these modules, kind of give it more of a kick, and just getting things going, because this is now our main focus, is getting that going, making sure that all of our things are producing the way it needs to be produced, and realizing right here that we're not producing any solid fuel. So it's taking me a little while to kind of set up how I want to do this whole solid fuel setup. Getting rid of some extra items from my inventory, which there's actually a lot. Deciding that, for the most part, I don't need all the extra light fuel. I don't need the extra heavy fuel. Or heavy oil and light fuel. I just need to get it processed into what we're actually going to use, being the solid fuel itself. So I put some limits down using the circuit network, making sure everything's connected properly, and all the excess is starting to be created into solid fuel, as you see right there. Right now it's only the light setup, not the heavy setup. But that's fine for now. This is a slow amount of processing will work fine. We're currently at 5% for our rocket, so we're at plenty more to go. So to fix this section here, I had set it back to normal earlier, so I then switched it around to actually produce more advanced circuits again. Flipping back and forth there, and I really should have made a particular setup just for that, rather than pulling from an already setting, basically so that it's dedicated just to creating advanced circuits, rather than splitting an already set up for normal circuits to advanced circuits. It was basically splitting hairs. That's literally what it was. It was just like splitting hairs. Not literally, but still. You get my point. Getting those speed modules down along with productivity modules to try to boost our setup here. Getting whatever speed modules I can, because the speed modules I pull for now, I then put into creating more speed modules. Look at that. It just makes it go a lot faster. Since I'm already creating the items for it, I don't need to really use productivity modules, and I can't really use productivity modules for modules, because that would be awesome, but we can't. At this point, I just don't see that it's going fast enough. I did actually create a huge amount of those assembly 3s, but this whole system is really slow for my needs, and I started working on a new idea of throwing things, just like boosting things up faster. Trying to think of how I can get things going just a little faster. And one of the things I think of is just more. Just add more. We got plenty of rooms, let's just add more. So go ahead and copy the whole advanced circuit system here. So I'm going to add a whole nother section here. Because we just need more. Just need more. It doesn't take too long for the robots to get everything put together. I then set up just a small system here to dedicate a whole section just to crafting the electric circuits needed to create them into advanced circuits. It doesn't take me too long to get set up. And like that, we have the circuits coming in for the advanced circuit system here. And it doesn't take too long to start producing some advanced circuits. We have plenty of setups creating advanced circuits, but we're going to need these guys for our rocket. I feel that we're not producing enough plastic at this time. We're just being pulled out so quickly. The main section of plastic is for these low density structures. So I go ahead and create another section to create plastic. Reset the fuel line setup. Or sorry, the petroleum setup. Either way, it doesn't take too long until more plastic is being produced, and we're kind of keeping up at this point. But with a little more finagling, I do set up another section here for more plastic. And like the times before, this will be the end of the episode. So this is ACryInShame from the Long Journey team, wishing you well, and signing out. Hello everyone, this is ACryInShame, part of the Long Journey team. If you like this video, hit the like button below to let us know. If you didn't like it, hit that dislike, and then comment below as to what we could do better, so we can improve ourselves. Also, if you want to see more videos made by the Long Journey team, hit the subscribe button below and get some notifications through us. Or through YouTube about us. If you want to help us out, you can go ahead and check our Patreon page. Just donate like $1 a month is a lot more than YouTube's been doing to support us. So go ahead, hit those likes, hit those subscribes, and support us if you feel. This is ACryInShame. Signing out.